I never thought I'd be the guy scouring forums at midnight, typing, "Is my wife cheating on me?" But here I was, feeling like my world was crumbling beneath me. It started small, as these things often do. A subtle shift in her laughter, like it wasn't quite reaching her eyes when we'd joke about our plans. Emma, my wife of 6 years, had been planning this girls' trip for weeks, a beach getaway with her close friends to unwind. I trusted her completely, or at least, I thought I did. When she hugged me goodbye at the airport, her excitement felt genuine. But something lingered in her expression, a flicker I couldn't quite place. I pushed it aside, chalking it up to my overthinking nature. The first few days were uneventful. She sent me photos of sunsets, cocktails, and their rented villa. She FaceTimed me each night, her voice tinged with that airy lightness that I loved so much. But then came day 4. The calls stopped. "Sorry, babe, crazy day," her text read that evening. It didn't feel like her, like the way she usually sounded when she was overwhelmed. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But when my buddy Mark joked, "Man, you let her go to paradise without you. Brave move," the comment struck me harder than I cared to admit. It wasn't that I suspected her outright. Emma wasn't like that. But something about the sudden distance between us gnawed at my mind. On the 5th night, I tried calling again. Straight to voicemail. I sent a casual text, "Everything okay? Miss your voice." Her reply came 2 hours later. "Phone trouble. Love you." 2 words felt glaringly absent. "I miss you." That's when the cracks began to spread. By day 6, Emma's messages had dwindled to near radio silence. "Girls' trip drama," she claimed in her last text that morning, followed by a non-committal, "Can't wait to see you soon." I tried to dismiss the unease building inside me, but my mind wouldn't stop churning. It felt off. Emma wasn't one to dodge calls or messages, not like this. I busied myself with work and tried to drown out the nagging thoughts. That evening, though, my resolve broke. I opened her Instagram page, half expecting to see cheerful updates about sun-kissed beaches or goofy group photos. Nothing. Her last post was from 2 days before, a blurry snapshot of a seafood platter captioned, "Island vibes." But then, I noticed something odd in the comments section. One of her friends, Lindsay, had replied, "Love this place. Pete and I went there last summer. So romantic, romantic?" I scrolled up, rereading Emma's post. It was generic enough, but why would Lindsay call it romantic? A faint sense of dread washed over me. Lindsay knew Emma's trip was with friends. Why frame it like a couple's outing? It could have been innocent. Maybe I was spiraling for no reason. But that tiny comment was a seed of doubt, and it started to grow. Out of desperation, I decided to call Emma's best friend, Sophie, one of the girls supposedly on this trip. Sophie and I had always gotten along, and I figured a quick chat might ease my mind. The line rang 4 times before she picked up, her voice groggy. "Hey, Sophie," I started casually. "Sorry to bother you. Just wanted to check in. Haven't heard much from Emma the past couple of days." Hey," Sophie mumbled, clearly half asleep. "Emma? She's good, I guess." Her tone wasn't reassuring. I pressed on, my heart beating faster. "You guess? Are you guys all having fun?" She hesitated, the silence stretching painfully. Yeah. Just, busy days. You know how she gets." Something wasn't adding up. Sophie was always quick with jokes and banter, but now she sounded nervous, evasive even. I decided to drop it for the moment, not wanting to tip her off that I was suspicious. After the call, I sat alone in the dark, staring at the muted television. My gut was screaming at me now. If Emma wasn't with Sophie and the girls like she said, then where was she? Who was she with? I needed answers. But first, I needed a plan. The morning after my unsettling call with Sophie, I found myself pacing the living room, wrestling with my thoughts. Doubt was a poisonous thing, seeping into every memory, every interaction. Was I being paranoid? Or was I missing something obvious? I needed concrete answers, not just suspicions. I decided to check Emma's location history. We'd shared locations on our phones in the past, an innocent feature we'd used to coordinate errands or meetups. It had never felt invasive before. But this time, opening the app felt like a betrayal, even if I justified it as necessary. I took a deep breath and clicked on her icon. My heart sank immediately. Emma's location wasn't at the villa where she was supposed to be staying. Instead, it showed a spot across town, An upscale resort I recognized from brochures we'd browsed together years ago, back when we dreamed of a vacation we never took. The name was unmistakable, Ocean View Paradise. I stared at the screen, hoping it was a glitch, that somehow the app had malfunctioned. But the blinking dot was steady, unwavering, like it was mocking me. Okay, I muttered aloud, forcing myself to think rationally. Maybe the group decided to move locations last minute. Maybe it's nothing. But why hadn't she told me? And why had Sophie been so vague about their plans? A gnawing feeling pushed me further. I opened the resort's website and found a phone number for the front desk. My hands shook as I dialed, a part of me praying they wouldn't pick up. "Thank you for calling Ocean View Paradise," a cheerful voice greeted. "How may I assist you today?" I cleared my throat, trying to sound casual. "Hi, I'm trying to reach a guest staying there. My wife, Emma Reynolds." "Certainly," the receptionist replied, her tone professional. "May I place you on hold while I check our records?" "Of course." My heart thudded loudly in the silence. After a moment, the line clicked again. "Yes, we do have an Emma Reynolds staying with us," the receptionist confirmed. "Would you like me to connect you to her room?" "Her room?" My stomach tightened. "No, that's okay," I said quickly. "I'll call her directly." "Thank you." I hung up, my thoughts racing. She wasn't supposed to have a room at all. She was meant to be sharing a villa with her friends. And if she had her own room, who was staying with her? 1,000 scenarios played out in my head, each worse than the last. I considered confronting her outright, but something held me back. If she was lying to me, I needed more than gut feelings to challenge her. I needed evidence. That's when the idea hit me. I could book a flight. I could show up unannounced, catch her off guard, and finally get to the truth. It was impulsive, yes, but the thought of sitting at home, helplessly guessing, was unbearable. Within an hour, I had my ticket. I'd be on a flight the next morning, arriving just after noon. Whatever was happening at Ocean View Paradise, I was about to find out. The flight to the island was a blur of turbulence, both in the air and in my mind. My thoughts churned like stormy seas, oscillating between anger, fear, and faint hope. I tried to prepare for every possibility. What if I was wrong? What if I wasn't? What if she wasn't alone? As the plane descended, the island came into view, its pristine beaches and lush greenery mocking the chaos in my heart. Ocean View Paradise was supposed to be our dream destination, a place we'd planned to visit together when life slowed down. Now, it loomed like a fortress hiding the truth I dreaded to face. By the time my taxi pulled up to the resort, my palms were slick with sweat. The building was as picturesque as the photos. White columns, sprawling gardens, and a shimmering pool that reflected the blazing sun. I stepped inside, my heart pounding. "Good afternoon, sir. Welcome to Ocean View Paradise." The receptionist greeted me with a practiced smile. "Do you have a reservation?" "No," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "But I'm here to visit my wife, Emma Reynolds. She's staying here." Her fingers danced across the keyboard. "Ah, yes, Mrs. Reynolds. She's in suite 314. "A suite?" My stomach churned. "Can you tell me if she's currently in her room?" I asked, masking my anxiety with a veneer of casual curiosity. The receptionist hesitated, her professionalism faltering. "I'm afraid we can't disclose the guest's whereabouts. However, I can connect you to her room if you'd like." "No, that's fine," I said quickly. "I'd like to surprise her. Could you point me toward the suite?" With a polite nod, she gestured toward the elevators. "The third floor, East Wing. Enjoy your stay." Every step to the elevator felt like walking a tightrope. When the doors closed, I caught my reflection in the polished metal. Disheveled, tense, a man on the edge. The elevator hummed softly as it carried me to what could be the end of my marriage. The hallway was eerily quiet as I approached suite 314. My hand trembled as I raised it to knock. But before my knuckles met the door, I heard voices inside. Laughter. A man's laughter. The sound was like a punch to the gut. I froze, every muscle in my body tensing. Then, Emma's voice followed, muffled but unmistakable. It wasn't the tone she used when talking to me. It was lighter, playful, intimate. I leaned closer, straining to hear. Their conversation was indistinct, but the rhythm of their laughter cut deeper than any words could. My mind raced. Should I knock? Burst in? Walk away? Before I could decide, the door handle turned. I barely had time to step back as the door swung open. A man stepped out, tall, broad-shouldered, with an easy confidence that immediately made my blood boil. He was carrying a bag over his shoulder, and his expression was relaxed, until he saw me. Our eyes locked, and for a split second, he looked startled. Then he smiled, as if masking his surprise. "Oh, excuse me," he said, brushing past me without a second glance. I barely noticed him leave. My focus snapped to the open door, where Emma now stood, frozen in the doorway. Her face paled as she met my gaze, her lips parting in shock. "Look," she whispered, as if saying my name might make me disappear. Her voice trembled, a mix of fear and disbelief. I stepped forward, the anger and betrayal I'd suppressed during the flight now boiling to the surface. "Surprise," I said, my tone colder than I intended. Her eyes darted down the hallway, then back to me, panic written all over her face. "What are you doing here? What am I doing here?" I repeated, incredulous. "That's what you're going with? Not an explanation for why I just saw another man leaving your room?" Her mouth opened and closed, but no words came. I pushed past her into the suite. The space was luxurious, with a balcony overlooking the ocean and champagne chilling on the table. Every detail screamed romance, not a group trip with friends. "Look, I can explain," she started, her voice cracking. I spun to face her. "Then explain, Emma. Explain why you're here, why he was here, and why you've been lying to me for days." Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't let them soften me. Whatever she had to say, it was too late to undo the cracks forming in my heart. Emma stood frozen in the middle of the suite, her face pale, her lips trembling. For a moment, it seemed like she might try to deny everything. But then, as if the weight of the situation finally crushed her, she slumped onto the edge of the bed. "Look," she whispered, her voice barely audible. I wasn't planning for this to happen." I crossed my arms, every nerve in my body coiled tight. "Wasn't planning for what to happen, Emma? Spell it out for me. I deserve at least that much." She looked down, avoiding my eyes, her hands clutching the edge of the bed. "His name is Daniel," she said quietly. "We met on a work trip a few months ago. I didn't think it meant anything at first. It was just talking. But then, we started texting, and it got complicated." I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. "Complicated?" I repeated, my voice dangerously low. "That's what you call sneaking off to a romantic resort with another man?" Her shoulders shook, and I realized she was crying. "It wasn't supposed to be like this," she said, her words spilling out in a rush. "The trip with the girls, it was real at first. But when they all started heading back, Daniel suggested I stay longer. He booked this place, and I don't know. I don't even know what I felt." "You felt what, Emma?" My voice cracked as anger and heartbreak mingled. "Excited? Thrilled? Was it worth throwing away everything we built together?" She finally looked up, her tear-streaked face a portrait of guilt. "It wasn't about you, Luke," she said, her voice breaking. "It was never about you. I felt like I was suffocating, like I'd lost myself." I laughed bitterly, the sound hollow in the luxurious suite. "So instead of talking to me, your husband, the person you're supposed to love and trust, you decided to find yourself in someone else's arms?" "It wasn't that simple," she pleaded, standing now. "I was going to tell you." "When?" "After you got back from your little fantasy vacation? After you'd had your fun and decided whether I was good enough to come back to?" She flinched at my words but didn't deny them. Her silence was answer enough. I paced the room, my chest heaving. Memories of us, our wedding day, the quiet nights curled up on the couch, the plans we'd made for our future, flashed through my mind like cruel taunts. I turned to her, my voice raw. "Do you even realize what you've done? What this means for us?" She stepped closer, reaching out, but I stepped back, refusing her touch. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said, her voice trembling. "I still love you, Luke. I swear I do." "Love?" I spat the word like it burned my tongue. "This isn't love, Emma. Love isn't lying, sneaking, or sharing a bed with someone else. Whatever you feel, it's not love." Her tears fell harder, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of the Emma I used to know. The one who laughed at my dumb jokes, who stayed up with me through sleepless nights, who looked at me like I was her whole world. But that Emma was gone, replaced by this stranger who had shattered my heart. "Look, please," she begged, her voice cracking. "Just let me explain everything." I shook my head, the weight of her betrayal too heavy to bear. "I've heard enough, Emma. You made your choices, and now I'm making mine." Her eyes widened as she realized what I meant. "Wait, no, Luke, we can fix this. We can go to counseling, talk it out." I cut her off, my voice hard. "You should have thought about that before you opened the door to him." With that, I turned and walked out of the suite, leaving her sobbing in the doorway. My chest felt hollow, my legs heavy as I headed back to the elevator. Every step away from her was agony, but I knew staying would have destroyed me. As the elevator doors closed, her muffled cries echoed faintly in the distance. I leaned against the cold wall, staring at the floor. The Emma I thought I knew was gone, and I had to start figuring out who I was without her. The taxi ride away from the resort felt like a dream. One of those vivid nightmares where everything is both too real and utterly surreal. The driver kept glancing at me in the rearview mirror, probably wondering why this disheveled man in yesterday's clothes looked like he'd just walked out of a disaster zone. I didn't care. My mind was replaying Emma's tear-streaked face, her desperate pleas, her confession. I arrived at the small inn where I had hastily booked a room. The space was clean but basic, a far cry from the luxury of Ocean View paradise. It was perfect. I didn't want comfort. I wanted distance. Dropping my bag on the bed, I sank into the chair by the window, staring out at the ocean without really seeing it. My phone buzzed. I didn't have to look to know who it was. Sure enough, Emma's name lit up the screen. "Missed call, Emma." New message, "Luke, please, just talk to me. I know I've hurt you, but I need you to hear me out." I turned off the phone. I wasn't ready. Not yet. The next day, I sat on the beach with a coffee that had gone cold long before I remembered to drink it. The waves rolled in, their rhythm steady, indifferent to my turmoil. I thought about all the things I hadn't said to Emma, the questions I hadn't asked. Who was Daniel really? What did he have that I didn't? How long had this been going on? But the truth was, none of it mattered. The one question that did was this: could I ever trust her again? The answer felt as vast and empty as the horizon. By mid-afternoon, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Emma. New message, Sophie. "Hey Luke, I just heard from Emma. I don't know what to say. Call me if you want to talk." I didn't reply. Sophie's complicity, or at least her evasion during my earlier call, had left me raw. I couldn't trust her, either. The whole situation felt like a web of betrayal, with Emma at its center, pulling the strings. That evening, I decided I couldn't stay on the island any longer. I booked the earliest flight home, packed my things, and headed to the airport. As I handed my boarding pass to the agent, I felt a strange sense of relief. Leaving the place where Emma had shattered everything gave me a sliver of hope for clarity. The flight was mercifully quiet. I stared out the window, watching the twinkling lights of the coastline fade into darkness. Every mile that passed felt like I was leaving behind not just Emma, but the man I had been. The one who believed in her unconditionally, the one who thought their love was unshakable. When I landed, I drove home in silence. Our house loomed in the darkness, familiar yet foreign. It had once been a place of love and laughter, but now it felt hollow. I hesitated before stepping inside, bracing myself for the memories that would assault me. The first thing I noticed was the smell of her perfume. She'd been here recently. Sure enough, there was a note on the kitchen counter, her handwriting unmistakable. "Luke, I'm so sorry for everything. I've left for a few days to give you space. Please, let's talk when you're ready. I love you. Emma." I crumpled the note in my hand, anger flaring. The audacity of her to claim she still loved me after what she'd done. It was infuriating. But beneath the anger was something more painful, a flicker of longing. A part of me still wanted to believe her, to believe that this wasn't the end. That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I sat at the dining table, staring at the divorce papers I'd printed months ago but never thought I'd use. They were just a precaution back then, a formality born from an idle fear. Now, they were a tangible choice, the fork in the road of my life. I poured myself a drink, the amber liquid burning as it slid down my throat. I couldn't make the decision yet. Not tonight. But the papers stayed on the table, a silent reminder that my life was now split into two possibilities. with Emma or without her. The clock struck midnight, and I stared out the window, wondering which path I would take. The next morning, I woke to the soft glow of dawn filtering through the blinds. The divorce papers were still on the table, stark against the wood's dark grain. They felt like a challenge, daring me to make the decision I wasn't ready for. My mind replayed Emma's words, her tearful pleas, the sound of that man's laughter. Each memory felt like a fresh wound. I knew I couldn't sit in limbo forever. If I didn't take control of the situation, it would consume me. I reached for my phone, steeling myself as I powered it on. A flurry of notifications appeared. Missed calls, messages from Emma and Sophie, even a voicemail from an unknown number. The messages were all variations of the same theme. Emma pleading for a chance to explain, Sophie asking me to talk, and the unknown voicemail piquing my curiosity. I played the voicemail. A deep male voice filled the room. Luke, this is Daniel. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need to set things straight. Please call me when you're ready. I owe you an explanation. My blood ran cold. Of all the people I expected to reach out, Daniel wasn't one of them. The nerve, the sheer audacity, made my anger flare. But it also stirred something else, curiosity. What could he possibly have to say? What justification could he offer for destroying my marriage? I debated calling him for hours, pacing the house, imagining every possible scenario. Finally, I caved. I needed answers, and if nothing else, I wanted to confront him directly. The phone rang twice before he picked up. Luke, he said, his tone cautious. Thank you for calling. Cut the pleasantries, I snapped. What do you want? He sighed. Look, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I need you to understand, this wasn't planned. I didn't set out to come between you and Emma. That's funny, I shot back, because it sure looks like you did. I get it, he said quickly. I do, and I don't expect you to forgive me. But Emma, she's not the villain you think she is. I laughed bitterly. Oh, really? She lied to me, cheated on me, and dragged me into this mess. Enlighten me, Daniel. How exactly is she not the villain? She's been struggling, Luke, he said softly. She feels trapped, like she's lost herself in your marriage. I didn't fully understand it until she told me how much pressure she feels to live up to what you want. His words struck a nerve. Emma had said something similar during her confession at the resort, but hearing it from Daniel made it feel more real, more pointed. Still, it didn't excuse their betrayal. Even if that's true, I said, my voice trembling with anger, that doesn't justify what you did. You could have stayed out of it. She could have come to me instead of running to you. You're right, he admitted. I should have walked away. But, Luke, she's not beyond saving. She still loves you. She talks about you constantly, even when we're together. She knows she's made mistakes, and she wants to fix things. I clenched my jaw, trying to process his words. And what about you? Where do you fit into all this? I'm stepping back, he said firmly. Emma and I, it was never meant to be more than a momentary escape. I realize now how wrong it was. She needs to figure out what she truly wants, and I don't want to be in the way. His words hung in the air, heavy with implications. Part of me wanted to hang up and never think about him again. But another part, the part that still clung to some shred of hope, wanted to believe there was a chance to salvage what Emma and I had. Why are you telling me this? I asked finally. Because I owe it to you, he said simply. And because I think you deserve to hear it from someone other than Emma. I ended the call without saying goodbye, my emotions a tangled mess. Daniel's words echoed in my mind, filling the silence of the house. Emma still loved me. She wanted to fix things. But could I? The divorce papers were still on the table when I walked back into the kitchen. I stared at them, my decision as elusive as ever. For the first time, though, I felt the faintest glimmer of something unexpected, the possibility of reconciliation. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was something. A beginning, maybe, or an end. I didn't know which. Not yet. The following morning, I woke with a clarity I hadn't felt in days. It wasn't a comforting clarity. It was the kind born from facing truths you can't escape. The divorce papers sat on the table like a silent dare, but my focus wasn't on them anymore. It was on Emma. I couldn't let this end without at least trying to get the full story, her story. If we were going to fall apart, I needed to know we'd done so with everything laid bare, nothing left unsaid. I picked up my phone and dialed her number. She answered on the first ring. "Luke," she said breathlessly, relief flooding her voice. "Thank you for calling." We need to talk," I interrupted, my tone firm but calm. "In person?" "Yes," she said quickly. "Of course. Just tell me when and where." "Here," I said. "Come home. We'll talk tonight." By the time evening rolled around, I had rehearsed a dozen different ways this conversation might go. None of them left me feeling confident. When Emma walked through the door, her face was pale, her eyes red-rimmed. She looked smaller, almost fragile, as if the weight of her choices had physically diminished her. "Thank you for letting me come," she said, her voice trembling. I gestured for her to sit, and we settled across from each other at the dining table. The same table where we'd shared countless dinners, celebrated anniversaries, and dreamed of our future. Now, it felt like neutral ground, a battlefield where truths would be revealed. "Start from the beginning," I said. "No excuses, no dodging. I want everything." Emma took a deep breath, her hands twisting nervously in her lap. "It started months ago," she began. "I didn't mean for it to. I felt lost, Luke. Like I didn't recognize myself anymore. You were always so steady, so focused on our plans, and I didn't know how to tell you I was struggling. I didn't want to disappoint you." "Disappoint me?" I said, incredulous. "Emma, you've always been enough for me. More than enough. Why didn't you just talk to me?" Her eyes filled with tears. "Because I didn't know how to. I thought I could handle it on my own. But then Daniel came along, and he listened. He made me feel seen in a way I hadn't felt in a long time." I clenched my fists under the table, willing myself to stay composed. "So you confided in him instead of your husband. And then what?" She hesitated, her gaze dropping to the floor. "It escalated," she admitted. "At first, it was just talking. Then it became more. I didn't mean for it to happen, Luke. I didn't plan it. But it felt like an escape from everything I couldn't face here." I leaned forward, my voice sharp. "And when you were done escaping, did you ever think about the damage you were causing? To us? To me?" Her tears spilled over, but I didn't soften. "Not yet. I thought I could keep it separate," she whispered. "I told myself it didn't mean I didn't love you. But the guilt, it grew until I couldn't breathe. That's why I wanted to tell you before you found out on your own. I just didn't know how." The room fell silent, her words hanging heavy between us. I stared at her, trying to reconcile this version of Emma, the remorseful, broken woman before me, with the one I thought I knew. "Do you still love him?" I asked finally, my voice quieter now. "No," she said firmly, meeting my eyes for the first time. "It was never about love with him. It was about running away. And now, all I want is to come back, to fix what I've broken." I leaned back, the weight of her confession settling over me. Part of me wanted to believe her, to grab onto the hope she was offering and fight for what we had. But another part, the part still raw from betrayal, wanted to walk away, to close this chapter and never look back. "You've hurt me more than I thought possible," I said, my voice cracking. "You've shattered my trust, Emma, and I don't know if I can get that back." Tears streamed down her face, but she didn't interrupt. "I need time," I continued. "Time to figure out if I can forgive you. Time to decide if this is something worth saving. But right now, I can't make any promises." She nodded, her expression crumpling. "I'll wait," she said. "As long as it takes. I'll do whatever it takes." I stood, signaling the end of the conversation. "You should go. I'll let you know when I'm ready to talk again." Emma rose slowly, her movements hesitant, as if afraid to shatter what little remained between us. She walked to the door, pausing before stepping out. "I'm sorry, Luke," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "For everything." And then she was gone, leaving me alone with the silence, the divorce papers, and a choice I still didn't know how to make.